topic is our next topic is before before Java comes into the world, it has when the developers of the Java decided to bring Java to the world, their first thought is what is the the concept that we can use, right? What is the basic concept that we can use to build this? So when as part of their search they end up identifying we can build a language by following object-oriented programming system. By following object-oriented programming system. So this concept, right? For this concept, it's just a specification. What they will say, right? Simple terms like let me explain you. The concept is like a car, which is when somebody says car, then it travels on the road. It travels using wheels, and it has some controllers, like it has brake and speed, all this. This is the concept, right? This is the basic, the core layer. Once you have that picture, you can design whatever you want. Like some BMW want to design BMW cars and different models in that. Honda want to design Honda cars and different models in that, right? So what is the basic concept? And again there is one more concept, like in a BMW, right? They follow certain core layer, like okay, we should not compromise on these we should not compromise on safety point. That is their concept, their very strong point. Based on that they build the car, right? So like that, Java also built on object oriented programming system concepts. There are more than there are good amount of concepts, object oriented concepts are there, but among those, Java mainly focused on four things. Java mainly focused on four things. Yeah. Java mainly focused on four things. Those four things are abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. These are the four things: abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. These are the four fundamental concepts that Java kept in mind while building Java application, Java language. Even when you try to write a program, these are the four concepts that any developer should keep in mind while developing Java programs on top of Java. Okay. Having said that, so let's take one at a time, like what is an abstraction, what is that concept, what is an encapsulation, what is that concept, and how Java adopted that concept, what is inheritance, how Java adopted that inheritance concept. Same case for polymorphism. We will take one at a time. Before that, let's understand the definition. Oops, right? Object-oriented programming system. So in this object-oriented programming system, what they will say is, when you talk about object-oriented programming concepts, you need to look at everything in terms of an object. You need to look at everything in terms of an object. I think Grady Booch or someone, I don't remember exactly. So what they will say, right? Like, anything in this world is an object. Anything in this world is an object. You take anything like, human being, computer, laptop, TV, anything you say, you name it, it's an object. In this object oriented world, everything is in terms of referred as an object. Okay, that's fine. So, and second line, what he says, no two objects are going to be same at any cost, okay. No two persons going to be same, no two cars going to be the same. Um, no trees are going to be the same, no two pens are going to be the same. So in this object oriented concept, no two objects are same. How does say, you may feel like, hey, I have a Dell laptop with the same configuration and my friend also having Dell laptop with the same configuration. How can you say like they are not same? But in terms of object oriented concept, what they will say is that laptop belongs to that guy, this laptop belongs to you, so they are not same. You see what I'm saying? And let's say there are two pens, same kind of pens, everything has been same manufacturer, same size, everything as is, not even used, and it just freshly just kept in front of you. And if somebody asks you in general concept like, are they same? Yes, you will say blindly like, yeah, they are same. But in terms of object oriented concept, they are not same. How they justify is, okay, so this pen has been made on so-called time, like so-called seconds, like 10th July 2015, 9 o'clock 30 minutes 15 seconds, this pen has been made. This pen has been made another date or the same date on the next second. So from object oriented world, even though for your eyes it looks like same, but in the object oriented world, every object is different. You cannot put two objects next to each other and say they are same. Okay, that is important thing we need to remember. Third thing, all the what you call object will be looked at two points. Object will be looked at 2 points. One is properties and second one is operations. One is properties and second one is operations. So what is properties and what are operations, right? Let's take a simple marker, or let's simple pen, right? What are the properties? The size of the marker, the color of the marker, the width of the marker, the brand of the marker, and the value of the marker, the cost of the marker. These are all properties. These are all properties of that marker. These are all properties of marker object. Okay. So what are the operations? What are operations? Operations are nothing but this marker can be used for writing, right? This marker can be used for writing on the dashboard. This marker can be used on writing on the whiteboard. This marker can be used to mark on the white paper, or this marker can be used to mark certain what you call standard points. So these are all the operations that you can do. Okay, so in car, right, in car, like a steering is a property, wheels are property, trunk is a property, seats are property, right? But the car will drive on the road, it goes on 50 speed or 60 speed, right? These are all the operations. These are all the operations of that object. Okay, so note, everything in the world is an object. No two objects are same, and every property can be looked at into properties and operations. Every object can be looked at into two things, two characteristics of properties and operations. Sometimes properties we call it as an attributes, operations we call it as a behavior. Okay, so let's go back to the object oriented concepts: abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. Okay, what is the definition of abstraction? Did I mention anywhere? Yeah. So what it says is, abstraction is nothing but providing required properties and operations of an object by hiding the internal details of the object. Okay. So when you say why, most of your interview questions, first level of interview or the vendor interviews or the primary screening, these are the basic questions they will ask. Okay, so what is an abstraction? So abstraction is nothing but providing the required properties, required operations of an object by hiding the internal details of that object. Let's take a simple example, right? TV remote. Okay, TV remote. You bought the TV and you got the remote and everything looks good. So there are a couple of buttons on the TV remote, right? So let's say each and every TV remote will have a buttons, different on off button and start button, all the things. Red button is switched off and blue button is switch on, and upper arrow is increase the volume, lower arrow is the decrease the volume, right? These are the buttons are the properties, and red button will, when you press red button, it does something, right? What it does, it switch off the TV. That is an operation. And these are all the different buttons. So when you look at the remote, you get to know there are buttons are there, and when I press certain button, certain action will happen. To this extent, to this extent of this remote object, but when you click on it, how come not connected at all? How come when you press a red button, the press will convert into turning off my TV that is sitting at least 3 to 4 feet away, right? How come it will happen? That you don't need to worry about it. That is called an abstraction. Okay, we will see how we implement, how we adopt it, but that is called an abstraction. So which means you are giving the necessary properties of our object and necessary operations of your own object, exposing outside. Apart from that, keeping the remaining part internally without giving an access. That is called an abstraction. Clear? Okay. I hope, if not, keep on the ping me on the chat. Next one is encapsulation. Writing properties and operations that are going to operate on properties in a single entity is called encapsulation. Okay, in the definition wise, writing properties and operations that are going to operate on a properties in a single entity is called encapsulation. Okay, in other words, in Java, properties are called variables, like I mentioned. Operations are called methods, and entity is called class. So writing variables and methods which are going to use variables into a class is called encapsulation. Okay, so what he's trying to do is, again, it's a close to the abstraction but not exactly the abstraction. What exactly is? An object is your remote object, right? But the properties, the buttons, the operations, like red button will turn off, blue button will turn on, upper arrow will increase the volume, lower button will decrease the volume. So these are all the operations. So keeping them together, right? In the same remote object, you have these buttons as well as the operations together. That is nothing but an encapsulation. How can we achieve that in encapsulation in Java? A lot of people in the primary screens, how can you ask this question, like how can you achieve in encapsulation? Encapsulation can be achieved by private variables and public methods of the class. So which means you keep all these buttons or operations internally and allow them through access to the public methods, like operations, whatever you're doing on the remote. Okay, that is called encapsulation. Okay, we're good. And next one is inheritance. This is so important property that Java uses like anything. Inheritance. Okay, what it means? Writing a new class by using the functionality of an existing class is called inheritance. Writing a new class by using the functionality of an existing class is called a inheritance. Okay, So what does it mean is simple way. Let's take our parents as an object and we as an object. Then, let's say my father has some properties. He has some land, all the blah 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 stuff, and you kept this land into my father's class, right? So now I don't need to mention the same land in my account. Simply by extending, by referring, okay, my father is having 50 acres. I don't need to explain again, I have 50 acres, right? Assuming like I get the all my father's property to me. You see what I'm saying? So same way, reusability, code reusability. You do, when you write certain logic in plain way, when you write in certain logic in one class, if you think that logic can be reusable in any other class, then you can use it by following the inheritance concept, saying that refer the parent class into your subclass. Okay, so I guess you guys maybe, and I believe you understand, but just for the sake of dummies who doesn't know anything about computer science, right? Okay, so this is a parent class. No, let's say this is a simple class. This is a, let's say for now, simple class. This is another simple class. Okay, and you have some functionality here. Okay, that functionality name is ABC. Okay, and you, this class, in this another simple class, get to know there is a functionality called ABC that works perfectly fine for me, right? So instead of taking this all this logic and keep it here, what they are saying is establish a relation between these two classes. Okay, that is called inheritance, and whoever is having that functionality is called parent class, and whoever is using that functionality is called child class. As simple as such. Okay, and parent class can also be called as base class. Child class can also be called as subclass. This one called as superclass as well. Okay, that's it. That is nothing but what you're going to get with this. You can reuse the certain logic. Let's say in simple, a class A, you have like 10,000 lines of code, and in class B you want that exact 10,000 lines of code will be perfectly works for you in class B. How can you do that? Rather than taking all these 10,000 lines of code and copy pasting in class B, all you can do is establish a relation between A and B, saying that okay, somebody becomes parent, somebody becomes child. Whoever is having functionality, that guy we can call it as a parent. Whoever is having child, that guy we can call it as subclass. Okay, that is nothing but encapsulation. I'm sorry, that is nothing but inheritance. Sorry. So what is the best advantage of inheritance? Code reusability. Okay. What is the best use case of inheritance? Is code reusability. Okay, fine. So what next? Polymorphism. Polymorphism as a definition is nothing but one operation behaving differently in different situations is nothing but polymorphism. one operations behaving differently in different situation. Okay, let's take a remote, again an example. Here now I'm going to say my remote is having only one red button. Okay, I don't have a blue button. Okay, agreed. So in this case, so when I first time when TV is switched off, when I press the red button, TV will be switched on. And when I press the red button again, TV will be switched off. Same red button behaved two different ways, right? When TV is running, when I press the red button, TV will get switched off. When TV is switched off, when I press the red button, TV is switched on. So based on different situations, same operation, pressing the button is the same operation, behaving differently, right? That is nothing but polymorphism. In Java, there are two types of polymorphisms. One is compile time polymorphism, another one is runtime polymorphism. Okay, so what is compile time polymorphism? What is runtime polymorphism? I'll explain you later, but you know what is compiling, what is running a program, right? Compiling is first converting your source code into byte codes, and running the program is running that byte code on JVM is nothing but running the program. Okay, just keep that in mind. We'll discuss later. So next one is, okay, we understand objects, it's nice, but in Java language, when you are learning about Java language, character states and keywords, all the stuff, we never encountered a word object, right? So in these concepts, like, you know, in all these language literals, all this stuff, we never encountered a keyword called objects. Then how the object and how the class is getting referred, and how what is the relation, right? So remember, this object oriented programming system is nothing but concepts, right? You don't see a word abstraction anywhere. You don't see a word encapsulation when you're writing a program. You don't see a word inheritance, a polymorphism. These are the concepts when you're writing Java. These are the concepts that should be in your mind so that you always follow those concepts. Okay, nice. So what is the relation between object and class? What is the relation between object and class? In simple way, class is an entity which contains variables and methods. These variables and methods, you know, class is an entity. A class is a read multiple values is an entity which contains methods and variables, Okay, these methods and variables collectively called as class members, and class is an entity. Okay, and in another way, class is a logical entity, object is the physical entity. Okay, class is a logical entity, object is physical entity, which means logically you are representing the class, but objects are real object, physical, you know, they are the ones which are going to sit in your JVM memory. They are the ones, objects is the ones which are going to occupy the space in your memory, JVM, right? Okay. Having said that, so they have some certain syntax, maybe we discussed already, but I'll just repeat it for your sake. So what is the syntax for the class? So class name, whatever the name that you want to give it, this is the class, right? So inside you can write a data type. Data type is nothing but int, float, double, char, string, boolean, right? And then variables, not string, remaining ones, variable 1, variable 2, whatever the int a, b kind of thing, right? And end of semicolon. And then method, any method you want to write, method name, arguments and a return type. A method must have a return type. Okay, a method must have return type. So there are different type of return types, like you can say this is like int. This method will return int. So when you say int, you must return some int value. Whatever the output of your operations that you want to do inside in this block, you must return some value back. Okay, return is a keyword. Okay, so this is the return type. And if you don't have anything in this method to return, then what you need to do, you need to convey the program that this is a void method. I am not expecting any return type from this method. I am not expecting any return type from this method, but I am doing some operations around this method. Okay, this is what the standards we are going to follow, right? Okay, next. So let's write a simple program. Okay, from now onwards, let's start using packages. What is packages? I can explain you for now. Packages are the nice way of segregating your programs. Let's say here now we discussed last 3 days, right? I want to know what we discussed in the last class. Now if we look at here, all the programs since the first day are in the same folder, same structure. I don't know which ones we discussed in the last class and which ones we discussed in the first class, right? To distinguish, what I can do is I can say that, like, okay, this is the day 1 folder, this is the day 2 folder, so that I can write all the day 2 folder in one class, all the day 2 discussion or day 2 classes or day 2 Java classes in the one folder and the day 1 Java classes in another folder. And next thing is, sometimes I may get confused like which batch I am teaching, right? So I can say like, okay, this is the batch 6. Okay, whom I am teaching for some organization, right? So first thing, so the format they defined is always when you want to define a package, what they suggest is like always starts with com dot company name. Okay, and then whatever the name you want, like in a project name or whatever it is. Like now we are discussing about batch 6 and day 5, right? Day 5. So this is how I created a package. Now I got the package here. So and right click on that package name, you can go back and start writing the class. Now student. Okay. See, now I can distinguish, like, okay, tomorrow if I come, whatever I discussed in today, it will be there in the student 5 package. Okay, there are some other additional advantages, we can discuss later those things. Okay, so abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, all the concepts, right? So let's talk about abstraction and encapsulation now. So what they are saying is, like, if you want to achieve encapsulation, what you can do is define a private variables, private string name. Okay, private. What is private? I will explain. Okay, don't worry. For now, private is something like, if you want to achieve, you need to name, this is the private is a keyword, and if you want to achieve encapsulation and abstraction, you need to define private variables. Okay, private int roll number, okay, private string course. Okay, there is the easiest way to write the methods for these things, as these are private. When you define a variable, anything private, The scope will be the scope will be limited within that class. Okay, remember, the scope will be within that limited class. We can discuss about the differences between private, public, protected, and the default. For now, remember, the scope will be within that. You can't access outside this block. You can't access these variables outside this class. But if somebody else is modifying this, how can we give an access, right? So that private variables and public methods. So simple way is go to source, generate getters and setters, generate getters and setters. Okay, remember this. Select all. Okay, so the methods has been generated. Yeah, where is that guy? Okay, so you have name and the corresponding name. Get name is a public method, set name is a public method. So if somebody want to update this class student with some name, they can use this method so that that name can get updated. And if somebody want to access that name, they can use this get name so that you can return the name that has been saved through set name. You see what I'm saying? Okay, let me remove for time being, just to give clarity. Okay, so student here in my section is name. That is the only property that student object is having. Okay, so I defined a private variable and now public method. So if somebody want to modify this one, they need to come through these methods, set name and get name. So set name, they use it by passing name, like say Shiva. Somebody want to use it like, student Shiva as an enrolled. Okay, so they will use this name, set name and Shiva. So this name will be assigned to this guy. So this guy is going to have name Shiva. And if somebody want to access that name, then you use get name. So the name will be returned back. Okay, don't worry too much. I just want to show you this encapsulation. When you go further, like after 2-3 classes, you will understand much better about this, because we haven't used like a lot of concepts like public, private, and accessing the outside variable inside method kind of concepts we haven't discussed actually. So this is called encapsulation. Okay, nice. Next thing is, how do we create an object, right? And how do we create an object? And I explained you guys, object is a object is a physical entity, and class is a logical entity. So to answer that, I wrote this one as well. So let's take this example, right? Hey, come on. Now we know student is the class here available. Okay, this is the text, plain text, right? A student class, all the blah blah blah. When you compile this, it will convert into bytecode. When you run that bytecode, what will happen? It will be loaded into memory, right? It will be loaded into memory. How the memory works, I will explain later. Okay, it will be loaded into the memory. When it loads into the memory, how the object is going to create, how the student object is created, right? So let's write another class called, oh come on, let's write another class called student generator. Okay, or student recorder, something like that. Okay, this is the main class. Okay, what I will do, how do you create the student objects and how do you set the properties inside the student is focus. Okay, if you want to create an object in Java, you need to follow this statement. Okay, using the new keyword. How do you create an object in Java? One of the best and one of the frequently used way is using the new keyword. Okay, so student stud equal to new is the keyword. Okay, student and a method. It sounds like a method. Okay, but this is not a student. So this is not a, this is called this is not a method. Sounds like a method. We haven't used the word constructor. Okay, this is the constructor. So this is how you create an object. This is how you create an object. So what happened, right? Like okay, student, we have a student here, and here in student recorder I came and I started writing student std equal to new student, right? What does this mean? What does this line mean, right? So what we are trying to say is use the student class. Okay, this is the student definition. A student definition is a name. A student definition here is name. If you have another variable called roll number, then student definition is name and roll number. Okay, so in student recorder what we are saying is create a std object. So this is an object after assigning this variable. Okay, so in simple terms what I can do is student std equal to null, nothing. Null is nothing. Okay, nothing is there kind of thing. Okay, so up to this line, this std is a reference variable. Okay, empty, a reference variable which holds null value. Okay, as and when you add this line, then it becomes, it's a reference variable of student holding an object called student. It's a std is a reference variable holding an object student. Okay, so this is how you create a student object. What happens in the memory is, now you have a student class, and so when you say std, student std equal to new student, let's say this is the memory. Don't worry much. Okay, so you'll definitely understand. In the beginning little confusing, but you will definitely understand. So std, a reference variable will be created. Initially null value will be there inside. Okay, and this is by default. Any reference variables will have by default 8 bytes. By default holds 8 bytes. Okay, now new student object, right? So what is student? When you say new student, what it happens is, okay, it looks for this class. This is the logical class, and physical object will be created here. An object will be created, some address, right? Like let's say 101 is the address, and the student, what and all it is having? A name. Okay, its name is a string, so name initially with null, because we haven't give any name, right? So initially with null value. So this is occupied at starting location of 101. It may went up to 150. Okay, let's say the memory by storing this name. So this 101, now as this next line, when you define like this, this is the situation. Okay, this piece will be created, and as and when you assign this guy new student to std reference variable, student reference variable, this 101 will be stored here. Instead of null, 101 will be referenced. So which means this student object, student reference variable, is holding the beginning address of the student. Okay, holding the beginning address of the student object. So using that, you can refer anything inside. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to set the values std dot set name. I'll say Santosh. So what happens with this line? What happens is this null, instead of this null, now Santosh will be replaced. Santosh will be replaced. And the reference will be like this. It is referring 101. 101 is the starting object, this object. So let's say I created another object, std, student. Now you can't use the same reference variable, right? So student1 equal to new student. Okay, now I created another one. So what happens here again? Let me clear a neat right on it. So in the first line, what we have is in the memory, name equal to Santosh. This is the student object. Student object located at 101 location, and std is the reference variable and holding the value of this student object, so 101. Okay, next what we did, we created another student reference variable with student assigning student object. Okay, so again it creates std1 and another object of student, okay, and with the name initially with null. You haven't assigned any value currently, right? So initially default value will be assigned null. Okay, and this address already assigned. Let's say this address is 1000. Okay, so you keep this 1000. Okay, as and when you write std dot set name Nagaraju, then what will happen? This null, instead of null, Nagaraju will be replaced. So now what you did, from the same class, some single student class with the definition having a name, you created two student objects. You created two student objects from the same class. Two student objects you created in the memory and assigned it to referred through std1 and std reference variables. Okay, this is the relation between the class and object. Okay, so a class can have a bunch of objects, can have as many objects as you want, This is just a logical entity to refer what is the definition, and these are the real objects that are loading in the memory. You got my point? Think, just focus on these lines. This is very important. Okay, this is what you need. In entire career you're going to be, this concept carries along with you. Okay, how the class and object will be referred, and how when you use the new keyword, what will happen, right? Are you guys with me? Okay, so next thing is I used a word called a reference variable, right? I used a word called reference variable. So we discussed about variables. Like what are the variables? What are the different type of variables? Like variable of type int, variable of type float, variable of type short, variable of type long, double, char, right? So these are all the different type of variables that you can write. Their initial value is what? 0. Their initial value is whatever the corresponding initial value that has been there, right? If you don't initialize, the default value will be assigned. But what is the reference variable? Reference variable is nothing but a variable which can hold an object address. Okay, reference variable is nothing but a variable which can hold the reference of an object, address of the object. Okay, that block address of an object will be stored in that reference variables. So those variables we call it as reference variables. Okay, reference variables by default, if you don't define anything by default, if you don't assign any object to the reference variables, then by default they are holding null value. They are holding null value. Here they are holding default values 0, 00f slash blah blah blah, default false kind of thing, right? Same thing for reference variables. The default value is null. Okay, so yeah, so we discussed about two things, like one is primitive variables and reference variables. So reference, what is the difference between, so whatever the variables that we discussed right on the above, like float, double, char, int, boolean, all these are primitive variables. If you guys remember, primitive data types, primitive variables. And the reference variables are nothing but the variables which can hold the object block. So these are the definitions. Primitive variables declared with primitive data type is called primitive variables. Default value of the primitive variables like int, float, double depends on the primitive data type used. So if you use int, then the default value is 0. If you use float, the default value is 0.0f. Okay. So memory size of the primitive variables depends on the primitive type what we use, right? So what is the memory size of double? I mean int 4. What is the float? 8, right? These are the depends on the data type that we use. Okay. So next is let's come back to reference variables. Okay, reference variables are nothing but variables declared with class type is called reference variable. So observe the difference, right? Int a, float b, student c. Okay, if you do like this, so these two are primitive variables. A and b are primitive variables because they are primitive data types, and the default value of int a is, if you don't assign anything, 0. I'll tell you, I mean, but there is some gap, but I'll tell you default value is 0, and this one default value is 0.0, and student, the default value is, if you don't do anything, null. You getting my point? And how can you say C is a reference variable if it is referred by a class? Its data type is class, variable declared with the class type. Student is a class type, right? Student is a class, so class type. So then it is called a reference variable. Default value of reference variable is null for all classes. Memory size of the reference variable is 8 bytes. Memory size default fixed. Any class you write now, student, you can write like again go back and write something, roll number and blah blah blah, another 20 properties like name, but still the size of the reference variable is 8 bytes because it just need to know the address. It need not to hold all the variables of that class details. It just need to hold the address of the student object. So the max it required to hold is 8 bytes. Okay, so that is good. So now another concept is we are talking about different kind of variables here. Okay, so next one is local variables. Local variables, and then what you call instance variables, and then static variables. So these are the three things important. So let's finish it today. If you write something here, right, inside a method, if you write something inside a method, any variable is called a local variable. If you write inside a method, it's called as a local variable. Okay, if you write inside a class outside a method, so this is the block. So let's say if I write here int xyz student abc, so these two are instance variables. Instance variables are nothing but class variables. Okay, instance variables are nothing but class variables, and the variables declared inside a method is called local variables. Okay, so what they are saying, local variables declared inside a method are called local variables. Scope of the local variable is within the method where it is declared. So what does it mean? So if I say int a equal to 10, okay, if I try to display here a, I can able to display because the scope of the variable declared inside a method is within that method. Okay, if I try to display that same variable a outside the method, okay, let's write out the method. If I try to access that variable here, so I'm saying like I defined a variable here inside the method main. If I try to access that variable here, it gives you compile time error. What is the compile time error? It says I cannot understand here. I cannot understand. I don't say anything because the scope of this variable is within the within this method. But if you see this variable that has been defined at the class level, if I try to access here, I can able to access. I can able to access, right? So that's what. So variables declared within the method, the scope of the variables is within that method itself. Okay. And another important point is we have to initialize local variable explicitly. There is no default value. Don't assume default value will be assigned in the local variable. Okay, so what does it mean? Let me clean it up. Okay. So if I say int a, int x, okay, we remember like when you say like this, the default value will be assigned here, right? So int x, what is the value of x now? 0. But when you try to do these things, and if you try to write something like this, okay, sys out a, see what it is saying? The local variable a may not be initialized. So it's a compile time error you are seeing. So your program doesn't even compile, so it can't execute. So if the compilation success only, your program will get executed, right? So what does it mean? So local variables, any type of variables that you are defining inside a method are called local variables. Those local variables must be initialized explicitly. Default variables cannot be assigned. Okay, but x here class variable, right? X that can be default value. X will be assigned. If you try to do like this, x, it will work even though you haven't initialized. Okay, So scope of the local variable is within the method where it is declared. We have to initialize local variables explicitly, otherwise local variables will fail with the might not be initialized error. Local variable can be primitive variables or reference variables. Like you can write now we write primitive variables, or you can write a student reference, all the blah 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 reference variables as well. And memory will be allocated for the local variables when you are invoking the method. This line keep it aside. When we discuss about memory in the next class, we'll discuss. JVM allocates the memory for local variables inside the stack frame where the definitions are defined. This one also keep it aside. I'll explain where these variables will be stored. Okay. Next one, instance variables. Variables declared inside a class without a static keyword are called as instance variables. So whatever you write between outside of the methods within the class, outside the method within the class, those are called instance variables. But there is an exclusion. If you say static int y, then in those case x is an instance variable but not y, because static is there. As and when there is a keyword static, then it has different meaning. I'll explain why, but for now we are discussing about instance variables. So an instance variable is a variable declared inside the class outside the method without static keyword is called instance variable. Okay, instance variables are no need to initialize. When you are not initializing instance variables, JVM will initialize them with default values. If you are trying with int, x will be x equal to 0. If you try with float, x equal to 0.0.f. And the scope of the instance variables is within the class where it is declared. Within the class where it is declared. So what does it mean? If you declare here, you can access anywhere within the method, outside method, whatever, wherever you want. Okay. And instance variable can be primitive variable and reference variables. So you can write here. Now these two are primitive variables. I can say student std. So this is reference variable. So instance variables can be primitive variables or reference variables. These two lines, JVM allocates memory for instance variables. When you are creating an object, JVM allocates memory for instance variables in the heap. These two lines, just keep it aside. Tomorrow we'll discuss how when you write a class, which part will go to which memory location. I will explain you. Okay. So last one, static variable. Very important variable. Very important thing you need to remember. You need to learn a lot. Okay, around static. Static is a modifier in Java which can be used for various methods and for classes. Only for inner classes, not for the top level classes. Static is a keyword in Java which can be used for method level, variables and classes. What does it mean? You can use this static keyword for method. You are using it right here already by default. And we can use it for variables, and we can use it for classes as well. When you are using classes, there is a small exception, only for inner classes, not for top level classes. What is inner class? That is another topic. Okay, just remember, static variable can be applied at class level, method level and variable level. Okay, so if so this one is static member method. So this is the static members with static variables or methods with static keyword is called static members. Okay, and so what are the definitions? Static variables are declared with static keyword. For example, static int a. What happens when you do this? I'll explain. Okay, hang on a second. So this is the line. What is the purpose of static keyword is only one copy of memory will be allocated for static variables for all the objects. These all objects will share the same memory location. All the objects will share the same memory location. and memory will be allocated for static variables when JVM is loading the class into the memory. And local variables cannot be static variables. You cannot use static inside the method. Static variables belongs to a class, so we can call static variables with a class name directly. Okay, there are 5 points. Okay, that is fine. 1 point I'll explain. You can easily understand. So let's take this one. This is the important point, right? This is the core definition. Only one copy of memory will be created. One copy of memory will be allocated for static variables for all the objects. Okay, what does it mean? I'll show you. Can I write a new method so that it will be clear? We can have some reference for the old programs. There is no point in keep on deleting the same program. Okay. Let me write another program. We can make it clear. Static. I'll call it as a static demo. Okay, so this is the static demo class. I'm going to write another class within this thing. So any single class file, you will have only one public class, and you can have as many classes as you want without public. Okay, so I'm going to call it as class ABC. Okay, only one public class, remaining classes you can have. Here we are going to experiment a lot. Okay, int a equal to 10. So what is this variable? This is the instance variable. Let's say when I say static int b equal to 20. This is what kind of variable? Static variable. And then let's say one more, void display, something like void display on some method. Okay, what I'm going to do is here SYSOUT. I'm going to call A, I'm going to call B. Okay, you can access, right? Outside class variables can be accessed across that class, right? Okay, so first I want to show you the first definition, only one copy, right? So what I will do is, this is good enough to display what I can do, void I want to modify this value and show only one copy will be created. Void let's say I got it. Yeah, so this is the initial value is 0, initial value is 0 here. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an object for this class ABC. ABC small letters equal to new ABC. Nice. Now A, B, I should have called something X, Y, Z. So, can easily refer, right? X, Y. ABC dot X equal to 20. Okay. ABC dot Y equal to 20. Okay. You good? So now what I will do, I initialize these variables here, and now I'm going to call ABC dot display method. Okay, what will happen in this program? What exactly happens? Try to understand. Okay, there is definitely not a rocket science for sure. It's just a focus and attention. Just it's not a big deal. So here you say ABC index, all these things. So when you type this first line, what will happen? ABC, small ABC reference variable, is holding an object of type ABC starting with 101, some memory like 1011, and X initially 0, because initially this value is 0, right? This value, this is the two things that is happening, and Y initially 0, and some display method here. Okay, this 1011 is referred. This is how up to this line, and when you do this line ABC X equal to initializing, this will become 20, this will become 20. Nice. Technically, okay, there is a static, that is there is a difference. I'll tell you what is that. Now if you try to display, what happens? Run the program, it will run some other program. Yeah, 2020, right? That is nice. But let me say, when I try to create ABC, one more object, okay, ABC1 equal to new ABC. What I'm going to do here, ABC dot ABC1 dot X equal to 30, ABC1 dot Y equal to 30. So now when I try to display ABC1 dot display, so here we expected the output would be 20 comma 20. Here the output expecting is, in normal case, 30 comma 30. Let's see what is the result. Oh, something wrong. Wait a second. Oh, this is good. Yeah. So this is better. It's easy way of understanding. Okay. So see, here we expected generally as default values are 0 comma 0, and initially we initialize the ABC object, reference object, and we initialize with 2020, and here we haven't initialized, we just directly displayed, right? So we expect 0 and 0, but what happens in the result? The result came as like 2020, that is as expected, but 020. Instead of 0, it displayed 20 for B. Why? Why is that? Because of the static. What is that mean is, like in memory what happens is, this is the only difference. Same program will take references ABC object will be assigned. So initially x value is 20, ABC, x value is 0. This is ABC reference variable, this is ABC1 reference variable, assigned is 10111, this is 11111 addresses. Okay, but what happens with the y is it will be outside the memory, okay, as and when you mentioned a static outside the object memory, outside that particular object memory, okay, it will be outside. So when you initialize for y for this ABC object, it becomes 20, and even though you haven't initialized with this guy, this value is displayed. So what does it mean? You create as many objects as you want, but static variables will be loaded at outside the objects. So you can create as many as objects you want from a class, but if there is any static variables will be loaded along with the class and will be tracked separately, like references, like this, references between this references. So if somebody modifies, it will reflect across all the objects. This is the static. It's the class. Object 1, object 2, object 3. So these three objects will be referred static variable in the same memory location. Same variable will be referred, that will be loaded at the class. So that is what it mean by this line. Only one copy of memory will be allocated for static variables for all the objects. That is, all the objects will the share same memory location. Okay, next one. Memory will be allocated for static variables when JVM is loading the class into the memory. Okay, memory concept, keep it aside, we'll discuss later. Okay, and the local variables cannot be static variables. So static variable is not allowed inside. If you try to define like static blah 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 int a, it will give you an error. It says static is not allowed inside a method. Static variable belongs to class. That is the reason it doesn't allow inside the method. Belongs to class, so we can call static variables with the class name directly. We can call static variables with the class name directly. What does it mean? What they are trying to say is, instead of creating an object, if you want to access static variables, you can do like this. ABC is the class, right? Dot y, you can access. What happened? Why it is not? Oh, sorry, I'm trying to do it inside a method. That is wrong, right? That is wrong. I'm doing some blunder. You can do this, right? Class name dot variable, something wrong, and I just trying to. Yeah, you just need to assign something wrong, and that's it. Yeah, so you can access directly with the class name. As of now, you try to access with the variable names, right? With reference objects. If you want to access any variables inside another class, you can use generally you use then by first creating an object and then you start accessing the variables inside that object, right? Instead of that, if in case of static, you can access that variable directly without creating any of the object for that class. You can access directly from the class name. Okay. Static variables belongs to class, so we can call static variables with the name class directly, class name directly. Okay. And so we discussed about variables. What happens, like you should not use static variables inside a method, and static variables can have only one copy of the memory across all the objects. So same memory, same copy will be shared across all the objects. all the blah 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 stuff we discussed, right? So next one is static methods. So what happens when you apply static keyword to a method? What happens when you apply static keyword to a method? So method defined with static keyword is called as static method. So this, in this case, this is the static method. Main is the static method, but display is not a display method is not a static method. Main is a static method. Okay, so variable declared with static keyword is called static method. Static methods belongs to class, again belongs to class, not methods. I mean, it doesn't belong to anyone, so just belongs to class. It doesn't belong to an object. What does it mean? Static methods belong to a class means doesn't belong to an object. Okay, we can invoke static methods with the class name or object of the class. So two ways you can do. Let's say I will write here static void display 2, something like that. Okay, SYSOUT inside static method. Okay, so we are talking about this one. So now this is a static method, this is a non-static method. Okay, what they are saying, static methods belongs to class, doesn't belong to object. We can invoke static methods by class name or object of the class. So what they are saying is, you can call abc dot display 2. You can call this way, or you can call directly with the class name dot display. Okay, but in case of non-static method, only option that you have is call through an object. If you try to call through class name, you don't get an access at all. So you don't see, only static variables you can see, right? So what does mean? Static variables can be accessed with the static members can be accessed through class name as well. Inside static methods, we can use static variables and static methods. This is another important point. Inside static methods, we can use static variables and static methods. Non-static methods are not allowed directly accessing. So let's say, forget about this piece, let's focus here. What I'm trying to say is, let's write another one, static void display 3. SYSOUT inside static. These are the rules that we are trying to understand now, is rules. So based on the rules, we can construct our logics on business. Now we are learning the core Java business rules. So I mean Java rules. What are the rules that has been Java is having? Okay. So now you have two static methods, one non-static method. So you can call one, and you can call this one method into another method, right? So let me say, like, if I try to call display 2 here, it works fine. What does it mean? Static methods can be called inside non-static methods, right? Static members can be called inside non-static methods. Static members instance you can call like this, or static variable you can say y. So this is access, right? So static members, variables and methods can be called inside non-static methods. Okay, that is nice. Let's try this one. Display 1. You get an error. Cannot make a static reference to the non-static method. So what does it mean? Non-static members can't be accessed inside static method. You see what I'm saying? You can call static method from non-static, but you cannot call non-static method from static method. If you want to call this guy, if you want an access to that guy, what you need to do is you need to create an object ABC equal to new ABC. Create an object first, then what you need to do, ABC dot, then it will be allowed. If you want to call non-static members inside a static method, you need to create an object and then access. Otherwise you cannot access directly. Okay, so that's what is inside static methods. You can use static variables and static methods. We cannot use non-static variables, non-static methods directly without objects, without creating an object. Okay, inside non-static methods we can use non-static members. That's we discussed, right? So what is the basic definition of statics? Static is a keyword and belongs to it can be applied to static members like static class, static variable, static methods. And when you apply static to a variable, it becomes a class variable. When you apply a static to a method, it becomes class method. And only in the concept of static variables, only one copy of memory will be allocated across all the objects. Okay, across all the objects when you define a static variable, and you can access static variable directly by using the class name instead of creating the object of the class. Okay, and in terms of static methods are the methods which belongs to a class, and when you use static keyword, then it becomes a static method. Then static methods doesn't belong to an object. You can understand that when we discuss about memory concepts. And you can invoke static methods using the class name. And inside static methods we cannot directly access non-static members. If you want to access non-static members, non-static methods inside a static class, static method, then you need to explicitly create an object and then access those non-static methods inside a static method. But static methods can be accessed inside a static method as well as non-static method as well. Okay, so there may be a little keyword confusion for you guys in the beginning, but go back and read out and look back. I'll go through this document, that is good enough, and recap this discussion. You can easily understand. We will do the programs, little bit concepts we are discussing now. When we start doing programs, you better understand. Just one more day, when we discussed about memory concepts, it will take another theory class, then we'll jump into programs. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for staying like another 30 minutes extra.